All right, Saturday evening update. The snowflakes are just starting to fall down. So something to consider. One, they're falling through a lot of dry air, so they're evaporating before they hit the ground. But number two, it actually takes the snowflakes about an hour to fall from the clouds. No big changes to forecast snow totals. In fact, the discussion is saying southern New Hampshire, southern Vermont, northern Massachusetts are places where you could see over 6 inches by daybreak on Sunday. The only big change I'm seeing is the amount of ice that's forecast, and it's gone up. Still looking at about 1 inch to 1.25 inches of liquid up in the air that's possible to fall down. Possibly some locations could see 1.5 inches. If that happens to correlate with where we have very high snow liquid to water ratios, where we're looking at 16-to-1 ratios and stuff like that. I mean, we're looking at 20 inches of snow if those conditions come together. If. It's going to be for really isolated places. That is the exception, not the rule. Sunday morning is when we're going to see that warm air aloft come pushing its way in. And when it does that, it's going to be changing the snow over to sleet and freezing rain. North of where that transition is, they're talking about snowfall rates of 1 to 1.5 inches per hour. It's going to be really, really heavy. And south of that's where we're going to get the mix. You are going to see an incredibly tight gradient of lower snowfall amounts and really high ones really close together. That makes this so hard to forecast because it may be a couple miles that makes a difference in that gradient. I don't like this paragraph. Flat ice accretion, glaze ice, freezing rain. Across these areas could reach 0.2 to 0.3 of an inch, with even higher and more significant amounts possible across southern New Hampshire, especially near the Monadnock region, where flat ice accretion may approach 0.5 inch. This is forecast ice. So the purple is 0.5 inch. That's just what that forecast discussion said. So yay. Southern Vermont, northwestern Massachusetts, north central Massachusetts, south central New Hampshire. This hurts. One, that freezing rain is going to soak into the snow. Any accumulations we have are going to get pushed down from the weight of that. Then it's going to freeze over solid and be super crusty. Not only that, but any places where we had branches that had accumulating snow, the moisture goes into it, it sticks. And with how the winds are going to be picking up on Monday and the volume of ice that we're expecting on Sunday in some locations, this is not great. The last little bit of ice we had in New England from one of the last storms, I told someone, I was like, I'm not too worried. I was like, oh, it was like a 2 out of 5. This may be like 4 out of 5 in some locations on like a danger or worry scale. If you're at the latitude of like the Lakes region, Augusta, central Vermont, talking maybe a few hundreds of a tenth of an inch of ice accretion, but because the thickness of the warm air above us is less and there's more cold air down below, it's favoring a lot more sleet the further north you go. And then north of that is snow. An area to watch where ice amounts may need to be increased even further is along southern portions of the Connecticut River Valley. Winter storm warnings are absolutely everywhere. Go to weather.gov to read the details. Forecast snowfall totals, seeing a little bit less. The higher amounts, I think, have moved slightly further north in Maine. Also seeing a little bit less probably in the Monadnock region. We're talking like from a foot to maybe 8 inches. So still generally 2 to 4 through southern New England, maybe closer to 4 through the northern parts of Connecticut and Rhode Island, approaching 6 inches through these 2 darker blue areas of Massachusetts. And as they continue up further north, once we start getting into the purples, that's where we're getting into double-digit snowfalls. The hot pinks are like 2 feet. We don't have to worry about that. I'll give you an updated look here at the National Weather Service updated snowfall forecast totals and ice totals too. Here are forecast snowfall totals for Vermont, New Hampshire, and for Maine. This is the Weather Service's ice forecast. So notice the differences between the graph forecast and this one. This one's concentrated a lot further south. I still think there's some good chances of seeing a little bit more through these areas. Ice for the rest of Maine. Ice forecasts for Vermont. Snowfall forecast for southern New England. And ice, goodness gracious. Sunday's going to be an FAFO day, meaning don't go out and drive around unless you absolutely have to, because you're either going to be dealing with a tremendous amount of snow or a tremendous amount of ice or a combination of both.